And today we have Mayor Duffy with us from Rochester, New York, who has really launched something truly unique with respect to literacy in his city. Mayor, we're looking at leadership and how a mayor chooses an issue and drives it to success. And you've had a unique interest in literacy generally, including pre-K. Talk to us a little bit first about how you chose that subject and how you made it an issue of importance for your city.
Well, that's a great question, Steve. When I go back to 1992, I was a captain in our police department in Rochester, assigned to a large initiative to focus on illegal drugs. It was a community-driven effort, and there was a business leader at that time who said, forget all the things you're focusing on. Literacy is the issue. It's education. That's why these kids are selling drugs. And it stuck with me during that time, but as I moved through my career and I look at our city today, we have a 39% graduation rate in Rochester in our city schools, which is deplorable. 57% of adults in our city read at 6th grade level or below. The unemployment rate is high. Education is the foundation. So what we thought we would do is look at something that's fundamental that we could focus on, where we can improve people's lives, and we started this effort with literacy that has just taken fire across our community, from some of our top business leaders down to community leaders to parents to our schools. Everybody has come together, and the goal is to make reading and make literacy so fundamental in every family, and hopefully over time change those statistics which I just mentioned.
And part of the responsibility and part of the criteria of leadership is when you identify an issue as a vision for the city, then you need to talk to the community about that, have them understand the importance of it, to sell the issue, if you will. How did you take this idea and make it an issue of such prominence in the city itself?
We held a summit a year ago, September, in Rochester. We had close to 500 people that came that represented every discipline, every area of the community, again, from our top corporate leaders down to parents, government, education, and healthcare, childcare. And it became an effort that really galvanized people. There was the passion in that room. I will never forget, the mayor of Cambridge, Massachusetts, came and spoke one day. And it really started a snowball effect. And what we began to focus on is to come up with a set of key priorities. And basically, for almost a year, we worked on putting it together and looking at trying to bring the right people together that could help make it happen. We did not want to make it too big, but we wanted to connect with current initiatives that we had to make sure we did not reinvent the wheel. But to make a compelling case that literacy was so fundamental. And we're at a point now, we had a rollout last month. The entire community, the entire city has been very passionate about this, but we're focusing on 3 areas. We're focusing on pre-K, making sure that we get as many kids as we can enrolled into pre-K. We're focusing on our schools. Looking at engaging teachers in schools and bringing mentors and others in to help read. And number 3, we're looking at taking advantage of a program such as VISTA, bringing volunteers in who will work out of our libraries in neighborhoods that are most ravaged by illiteracy. And what we're trying to also, in the last part, is make a case, really as a marketing campaign, telling parents, put the iPods down, the phones, all the technology, read to your children. And one of the things that struck me, my mother's 92, she's in a nursing home, she has dementia, but the memories that I have as a child is sitting there with my mother, and she read. She taught for 35 years. She had me reading history and geography books when I was in the 1st and 2nd grade. We were basically, I wouldn't say forced, as probably a tough word, but it was strongly suggested in our house that we read and read every night. The phones weren't to be used, TVs were off, we did our homework, but we read. And she just reinforced the beauty of reading. And to this day, as busy as I find myself with this job, I have a book going all the time. I always have one book that I'm trying to stay focused on and read. Maybe it's 10 or 20 pages here and there, but I just try and have it. And my kids, I have 2 daughters, have both grown up with a love of reading, and I want to make sure we share that across our city.
That's good. I think with us for a minute about the following. It seems to me it's one thing, and you have a police background, to say, all right, I'm going to order the police to crack down on burglary. they work for you or they work for the chief. And it's another to say, well, I don't really have much direct authority over literacy or schools, or I don't know how your libraries work. That's a different form of leadership. So how did you get folks to buy in and assign resources who didn't actually directly work for you?
I think the biggest issue was making a compelling case with the data. The numbers I mentioned before, they're shocking. You're thinking more than half the adults in our city cannot read above the 6th grade level. And if you cannot read, you are victimized in other ways. When you look at issues like subprime lending and things that impact communities across this country, if you are not educated, if you're not literate, if you cannot read, especially read in a detailed form, I think you end up having a life that puts you in a position of continuously either being victimized or being behind the norm. So looking at those numbers, we wanted to affect a change. And by putting that out there, we've had great community support. And what I find is that people want to help. Sometimes we don't ask our corporate CEOs, our not-for-profit leaders, our parents, our own city workers to get involved. But when we make a case, and we made a very compelling case with this, and also we use this as one of those fundamental issues for change. Everything we do in government, so many of the things we do are short-term. You know, whether it be policing, economic development, some of the things we do have more of a short-term benefit as opposed to some of the long-term efforts. I think the issue of literacy is long-term. To me, it impacts people for a lifetime. And one thing that we have to go back and fight is our kids who are growing up today, their parents don't read, and their grandparents may not read. I go back to the graduation rates in our schools. Crime in our city, the unemployment rate, the issues that we end up facing every day, so much of it come out of education. And I think people drop out of school for a number of reasons. They get frustrated. They don't have the innate skills. But for a child to go to school and be successful, he or she needs their parents to be actively involved with their education. And if those parents can't read, there's no way they can provide that support. So given some of those issues, people have really come together. And I've been involved in a lot of programs in my career. I've not seen one that has galvanized the diversity of leadership from across Rochester like I have with the literacy.
Just one or two more questions. I know you and your city are very serious about data and measurement. What's your definition of success for your literacy program?
Well, when I look at the reading level right now, 57%, I would like to be in the 90s of kids that read at grade level and parents who are literate. I won't say we are the most illiterate city, but I think we are probably in a category of cities that have a high degree of illiteracy. One of our benchmark goals is to be the most literate city in this country. So by having kids reading at or above the grade level they're at, having parents who clearly can read at high school to college level at a minimum are important measures. How we capture all the baseline data, it's a little more difficult. We have some data we use right now that's helpful. Hard to get all the data that would be necessary to really have an across-the-board specific measurement, but we're going to work very hard to do it. And what we are focusing on are those areas of our city that have been the hardest hit. We have libraries in each one of our neighborhoods, so that's a great asset to have as perhaps maybe a beachhead that we establish in those neighborhoods. But if we start the process, if we make it fun, if we could show success and support, and we have plans for TV shows and a number of things that will make it fun, make it exciting for kids and parents, but look for ways that we can highlight the successes. I think at some point, we're hoping 3 to 5 years out, we could have some of the measurements that will show a change. And I think a measurement that I would look at as mayor is the graduation rates in our high schools. I mentioned 39% a couple of times. It is deplorable. It is unimaginable to think that 39% of our kids graduate. We should be in the 80s or 90s. And I would venture that aside from some of the issues of poverty and economics those kids face, a lot of it is the lack of value of education in the homes. It comes from parents who perhaps have dropped out, grandparents who may have dropped out of school, and that cycle repeats itself. And these are the kids we have to save, and I believe there are enough measurements available that we can show and demonstrate success that we have if we implement and we carry out this effort to the level that we hope to.
And just in closing, we've been talking a lot with new mayors generally. What one or two lessons of innovative leadership, just generally across areas, have you kind of learned from this experience that you would recommend to others?
Well, one thing I've learned, I came to this session for newly elected mayors 2 years ago. What I would offer to any elected official, any leader, is look at the problems that your community or organization faces. Dig deeply, peel away the layers, and try and find, what is the core problem. Look at what you've done in the past and go at that problem. And what we're looking at, and I'll go back to the issue of education, looking at crime in Rochester, looking at our homicide rate. When you looked at the data, where overwhelmingly the young people who are involved in crimes, from shootings to killings to drug dealing, are all high school dropouts. You can very easily point to where your areas of interest and focus should be. And I think we have to think outside the box. And sometimes it's tough in a political environment to get the kind of support that you need. But we have to have the courage to try things. And Edison didn't create the light bulb the first time. It was probably years and years. I think leaders should not be afraid of failure. If anyone is going into office or going to lead thinking they'll be successful all the time, they should change their attitude, because you're going to fail, you're going to fall at times, but it's like running a marathon. You have to put one foot in front of the other and keep on going. If you have a deep belief in what you're doing and the community that you're serving, try things. One thing that I also am very proud of, I put a team together in Rochester I'm very proud of. It's not your ordinary government team. I went out, I have private sector CEOs, presidents, vice presidents, two who came out of retirement to come back and work for the city, who have incredible skills. But they believe in the city, they believe that we can affect change. So I have the opportunity to tap into all this incredible skill every day at work. And so a big part of leadership too is having good people around you, good strong people, setting a vision, letting them go, and giving them the opportunity to go and lead and be innovative, to try and experiment, and don't punish somebody for making a mistake. I think as a mayor, I have to be willing to take the heat for mistakes. It's going to happen. We don't pass that responsibility on to somebody else. I'm responsible. But I feel that with the people that we have in place, we're going to see some great successes. Might not be overnight. Nothing happens quickly, but you have to have the ability to hang in there and keep going like a marathon. It's long, it's drawn out, but if you stay on that path, you're going to see success.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.